Hello everyone and welcome to the third part of my recap of HBO series Rome. Make sure to watch all of the previous parts on my channel. Be sure to like this video and subscribe for more content like this. Enjoy. Following Caesar's bloody assassination, Pascha attends to his master's corpse while Mark Antony staggers out of the Senate house, struggling to come to terms with what has happened. However, he is soon forced to run for his life when Quintus Pompey and a number of thugs attack and try to murder him. Anthony flees and takes refuge at the Julii villa. Brutus, meanwhile, staggers back to his family home, traumatized by what he has done. Servilia consoles him, assuring her son he has done the right thing, but Brutus is too haunted by Caesar's death to take comfort from Servilia's assurances he has both redeemed their family name and saved the Republic. At his home, Vorenus grieves over the body of Niobe. When his children appear, Vorenus turns on them in his grief and rage, knowing that they hid the knowledge of his wife's affair and secret child from him. In his fury, Vorenus curses his family and then storms out into the back alleys of Rome. His loss, combined with his discovery that Caesar is dead, an act he could have prevented, causes Vorenus to collapse where he stands, overwhelmed. At the home of the Julii, Antony angrily threatens retribution on all Caesar's killers, as well as Vorenus for abandoning them. Attia reminds him that Servilia is the driving force behind the murders, and informs him that Vorenus was lured away. Antony advises Attia and her family to flee Rome with him to the north, where he can assemble an army to fall upon the liberators. However, they are stopped as they try to convince Caesar's widow, Calpurnia, who insists they must attend to Caesar's will. In it, Caesar has left a substantial sum of money to every citizen of Rome, frees Pascha, and leaves his estate and title to Octavian, whom Caesar refers to as his son in the will. Knowing that he will get nothing if Brutus and his allies declare Caesar's death a tyrannicide, which would make all of his acts null and void, Octavian convinces Antony and Attia to cut a deal with the assassins, since if Brutus and his allies do so, they also lose all the positions and power Caesar bestowed on them. The next day, Antony heads to Servilia's villa to put the proposal to Brutus and Cassius, arriving as Cicero is in the middle of a speech praising them for their act. The group settles into a meeting, with Cicero acting as arbitrator, though Antony orders Quintus to leave, informing the others of Pompey's attempt to murder him, while Brutus denies involvement. Cassius remains silent. Antony comments that Caesar was beloved by the people, and they will hate his murderers for what they have done. He also reminds the group of what Octavian told him, that if they declare Caesar a tyrant, they lose all the power and influence he gave them. Antony proposes a solution, an amnesty in which Caesar is not declared a tyrant, nor are the liberators declared murderers. All his acts and his will stand, a funeral is held for Caesar, and then everything carries on as normal. After Antony leaves to give the others time to think over his offer, Brutus angrily remonstrates with Cassius for trying to kill Antony against his wishes. While Cicero, Cassius and Servilia urge him to kill Antony, Brutus refuses and agrees to the proposal. Antony departs, though not before killing Quintus as revenge for his attempted murder. However, at Caesar's funeral, Antony uses his eulogy as an opportunity to incite the people against the assassins. Antony advises Brutus, Cassius and the others to leave Rome, which was his intention all along, but Servilia will stay, as a hostage to ensure their cooperation. However, when they refuse, and Cassius arrogantly sneers that the Senate and the men of quality are with them, Antony's temper finally gets the better of him and he angrily bellows at Cassius, "And I have an angry mob, that will roast and eat your men of quality in the ashes of the Senate house." Cowed by Antony's fury, Brutus and Cassius, along with their allies, reluctantly depart Rome. Still on their excursion to the countryside, Titus Pullo asks his former slave, Irene, to marry him. Though clearly surprised, she accepts. But when they hear the news of Caesar's death, they immediately return to Rome. They search for Vorenus, only to find him in a terrible state and his children missing. Pullo consoles a distraught Vorenus that since he didn't seal the curse, he can easily lift it when the children return. However, after several days, and Niobe's funeral, the children still have not returned. After some investigation, they discover that their old enemy, Erastes Fulman, has taken the children. Vorenus and Pullo storm into a bathhouse, slaughter the men guarding him and interrogate Fulman. Realizing he is dead whether he speaks or not, Fulman tells Vorenus that he took the children as payment for Vorenus's many slights against him, raped and killed them, then dumped the bodies into the Tiber River. Furious, Vorenus beheads Fulman and with Pullo, walks calmly out of the bathhouse, carrying Fulman's head with him. With Erastes Fulman gone, the Aventine is up for grabs, and rival gangs have taken to the streets in a struggle for control, stabbing each other in the open markets. Having surrendered to his grief, Vorenus refuses to leave his bed, staring catatonically at the head of Erastes Fulman, still rotting in a corner. Pullo tries to talk Vorenus into a new start, noting the mourning period has ended, but Vorenus won't hear of it. Now Consul of Rome, Mark Antony is preparing for the arrival of Cleopatra, Queen of Egypt, which has Attia up in arms. To assuage her jealousy, Antony describes Cleopatra as a dark, skinny little thing who talks too much. Octavian interrupts to press him about the money Caesar left him, but Antony puts him off with talk of paperwork and lawyering. Cleopatra is far more subdued than she was 4 years earlier, which puzzles Mark Antony, whom she doesn't recall meeting. She's in mourning over Caesar, she tells him, as he was like a husband to me. Antony scoffs. Roman consul, Egyptian wife? Wouldn't do. The Queen's counsel, Charmian, interrupts to begin negotiations. The consul of Rome will guarantee armies to protect her throne in exchange for the value of her grain shipments. Pascha ups the price, and they settle on an amount. But the Queen has one more issue to put on the table, her 4-year-old son, Caesarion. Soon she must tell him that his father's people do not accept him as a true legal son. She wants a public declaration of the boy's paternity, simply for his happiness. With a lecherous grin, Antony attempts to privately negotiate something in return, earning himself a fierce slap. Antony then vows that her son will never be illegitimate in the eyes of the Roman Empire. At the Basilica, an irritated Antony receives petitioners. A representative of the merchants complains about the violence in the Aventine killing commerce, the root of civic virtue. Cicero jumps in, warning that whoever controls the Aventine controls the docks and the grain supply. And if the violence spreads, the whole city will descend into chaos and famine, and you will be blamed, I'm afraid. Antony growls that he will resolve the matter before presenting Cicero with a list of candidates for next year's elections, claiming Pascha found them among Caesar's papers. Cicero claims that the list contains every scoundrel in the city who paid off Pascha. After a threat from Antony, Cicero agrees to endorse them, but only if he can cross off the worst of the lot, remarking that he is still, for the moment, too useful for Antony to simply kill him. At a loss with Vorenus, Pullo seeks out the new consul of Rome. Mark Antony accompanies him back to the cursed villa, jarring his former soldier out of his depression. He reprimands Vorenus harshly, accusing him of letting our great father die and starting a war in the Aventine by killing Orestes. Vorenus insists he would kill himself, but this is his master, he's at the mercy of the god to end his life. Antony replies that he is Vorenus' master, and that no one is beyond redemption. As Attia prepares to host a party for the Egyptians, Octavian spots Timon and his henchmen, armed for battle, and confronts his mother about her latest plot, which as he suspects involves killing Servilia. When he threatens to go to Mark Antony, Attia stops him, then sends Timon and his men away, furious with her impudent son. A retinue of exotically dressed servants and courtiers arrive with the wide-eyed 4-year-old in tow, his hair done up like Caesar's. Not far behind is the stunning queen, dressed to kill, and high on opium. She takes Mark Antony's hand affectionately and, ignoring Attia, captivates the room. Timon returns home to find a surprise visitor, his older brother, Levi, an observant Jew from Jerusalem, resurfacing after 9 years. Levi claims he's come to expand his business where the money is, the spice, cloth and oil trade. But after a terse talk with his brother, Levi finally concedes that he was forced to leave his homeland, as he spoke too freely about the so-called leaders licking the boots of Roman soldiers. Timon reproaches his brother, not wanting Levi's zealot views to bring trouble to Timon and his family. After torturing Attia with her beauty and overt affections toward Mark Antony, Cleopatra makes a scene as she leaves, telling the consul she shall weep until she sees him again. Turning to Attia, she demands a kiss. Die screaming, you pig-spawn trollop, Attia whispers into the monarch's ear. Antony is in for a rough night. As the gang wars escalate in the Aventine, the priests of Concord call a summit. 6 rough-hewn captains of the underworld, each with their own band of henchmen, gather before the priests and their statue of Concordia, goddess of harmony. An alliance has formed between the 2 biggest gangs, the Calians, led by Memio, and the Quirignali, under Hannibal Cotta. Across from them, a quartet of smaller gangs stand in equal numbers, including the Ippians, led by Acerbo. Pullo and Vorenus make a dramatic entrance. Vorenus announces that he speaks under the authority of Mark Antony, consul of Rome, who declares their battle to control the Aventine finished. Acerbo points out that he has no men, they're all dead or run away. Vorenus replies that he will recruit from Rome's large population of thieves and murderers, and perhaps some of yours. As the men stir in protest, Memio reminds them the goddess is present. When order is restored, Vorenus explains they'll receive a monthly stipend of 5,000 denarii from Mark Antony, under Vorenus's supervision. In return, They will limit themselves to their traditional liberties and malpractices, nothing that will disrupt trade or politics. With this, Vorenus pushes aside the priests and grabs the goddess, then smashes the statue repeatedly against a pillar until it shatters into shards. The captains and horrified priests look on in astonishment. Pullo panics, but Acerbo quickly agrees to do business, as Memio and Cotta stare at the remains of the statue, speechless. Outside Attia's villa, a young boy is beaten by a pack of larger ones, until Castor intervenes. The grateful boy, Duro, kisses Castor's feet and begs him for work, offering to do anything, including sexual favors. Castor seems to consider the offer. Octavian seeks out Mark Antony one more time to remind him about his inheritance. He intends to give the plebeians the money Caesar promised them. Octavian explains he's enlisted a lawyer to help Pasca transfer the money without further delay. This infuriates Antony, who tells him he's getting none of it. Attia tries to placate him, then scolds her son after he leaves. When Octavia confronts her brother, Octavian shares his secret plans with her. As he sees it, the Republic is on the brink of collapse, with a weak and cowardly Senate and angry, starving plebeians. So he plans to assume a leadership role and offer new initiatives. Octavia bursts out laughing at her little brother, until she realizes he's dead serious. In the forum, a newsreader announces a pledge from Gaius Octavian Cezar, the lawful son of Gaius Julius Cezar, who plans to personally fulfill the terms of his beloved father's bequest to the people, delivering the money they are due. Hearing the news, Mark Antony enters the boy's bedroom in a fit of rage. Octavian tries to assure him the offering was not meant as a direct challenge to his authority, claiming he wants to make a public display of unity. His name, Caesar's name, can offer Antony protection from his enemies in the Senate. This only infuriates Antony more, and when he learns that Octavian was able to borrow against the money given his legal claim, he attacks the boy. When Attia hears how much he's given away, 3 million sestertii, she jumps in, too. Watching Antony unleash all his fury on the boy, Attia finally tries to stop him. Octavian insults her, inspiring Antony to pummel the boy a few more times, until Octavia finally intervenes. At the Aventine Tavern, Vorenus moves into Erastes Fulman's former office, as Pullo begins interviewing applicants for jobs in the more orderly collegium. A bold, scantily clad woman named Gaia enters, impressing Pullo. A former supervisor at a brothel who kept the customers in line, she negotiates a similar job with better pay. Macius, a former soldier from the 13th, arrives next, desperate for work. They warn him of the questionable nature of the work, but he lost his farm and now he's homeless. He'd already heard about the black-hearted villain named Vorenus who's in league with the gods below. Vorenus smiles wickedly at this, worrying Pullo. Pullo says that gods will punish Vorenus for claiming he is a son of Hades. Vorenus replies that the gods can do no more to him, as they have already taken his wife and children. Cicero pays a visit to Servilia, who is thrilled with the news of Octavian's bold initiative, certain that the Caesarian house divided will destroy itself. Though Cicero doubts the boy will be a true rival to Antony, Servilia believes Caesar chose him for a reason. She also thinks the Senate should ask her son to return. As Cicero talks of caution, waiting to see what develops, Servilia does not look pleased. Attia returns to her son's room to find a note bidding her farewell. Her face streams with tears as she reads it. "I hope in time you will understand the gravity of your mistake," he writes. Determined as ever to pursue a political career, he's headed south for Campania to stay with a friend, Agrippa, who is well established there. On a dusty road along the Italian countryside, Octavian rides on horseback, accompanied by several servants and guards. They pass a large slave transport full of bodies chained together, moaning in pain. In the very back, Vorina the elder, Vorina the younger, Lucius and Lit are huddled on the floor, their faces blank and hopeless. As the nomadic Brutus and Cassius struggle to raise foreign money for an army, Mark Antony sets his sights on Gaul. Cicero delivers an in absentia message to the Senate, and then throws his support to Octavian, the new Caesar. Meanwhile, Vorenus is in a battle of his own, having provoked an all-out gang war in the Aventine Collegium. At Attia's villa, Octavia passes the hours getting intoxicated by hemp with a nouveau riche tradesman's daughter, while Duro, a duplicitous youth, looks for the chance to set Servilia's deadly plan in motion. 43 BC. Servilia's spy Duro has been taken into service at Attia's villa by Castor, Attia's lead male house slave, in exchange for sexual favors. Duro slips into Attia's kitchen where he secretly poisons the dinner stew being prepared by the cook. The cook is Althea, a female kitchen slave who thinks Duro's attention to her is because he is genuinely attracted to her. Althea secretly tastes the stew on her way to taking it to Attia's table and dies before Attia has touched it. Duro is captured by Castor and Attia orders her Jewish henchman, Timon, to torture him. Duro confesses to Attia, after several hours of torture by Timon and his men, that it was Servilia who had employed him. Timon takes Duro out into the poorer district and kills him but feels guilty. His guilt is further intensified when at home his brother Levi criticizes him for doing Attia's dirty work, and he unintentionally scares his children while arguing with Levi. Timon is later told by Attia to kidnap Servilia while she is praying at her villa. He brings Servilia before Attia, where she is brutally tortured by Timon and raped by his men in Attia's basement. After hours of torturing Servilia, Timon feels pity on her and frees her. The bloodied Servilia runs out on the streets while Attia asks why Timon set her free. Timon seizes Attia's throat in his hand, and tells her he's not an animal. He storms out, presumably without intent to ever return. Meanwhile, Octavian and Antony's legions clash in the Battle of Matina. After Octavian wins the battle, he sends his aide, Agrippa, to tell his mother and sister, Attia and Octavia. Agrippa arrives at Attia's villa and tells Octavia and Attia that Antony has fled to Transalpine Gaul and Octavian has won. He also begins to profess his feelings for Octavia, blurting out he would rather die than cause her unhappiness, but Octavia quickly changes the subject. Attia, meanwhile, is happy that both her lover, Antony, and son Octavian are alive. With help and directions from Octavian, Pullo finds Vorenus, who had joined Antony's army at Antony's request, and tells Vorenus that his children are alive in a slave camp. Vorenus asks permission of Antony to leave his army in order to search for his children and Antony consents. On the way to the camp, Pullo asks what Vorenus intends to do with Niobe's son Lucius. Vorenus replies that for honor's sake, the boy must die. They arrive at the slave camp where they pretend the children are runaways belonging to Octavian in order to get access. They find Vorina the younger first, who has been put to work in the kitchens. Vorenus embraces her before noticing Lucius, whom he seizes angrily, before softening and hugging the bewildered boy. He then discovers that Vorina the elder has been forced into prostitution, at which point he kills the slave camp owner and leaves with all 3 children in tow. The struggle in Rome continues as Octavian, the new Caesar, with his army at the city's borders, establishes himself as consul to the Senate with the reluctant help of Cicero. Meanwhile, Vorenus returns to Rome with his rescued children. Secretly, the children wish to run away. The children steal some of Vorenus' money and run off to their aunt Lyd, who insists that they return to their father and, at least, pretend to love and forgive him even after what he has done to their mother. Vorenus makes peace with his rival gangs at a great loss, but informs Pullo that even though the others may think they're going soft, they will rebuild their forces. At an orgy, Agrippa abducts Octavia and returns her home to Attia. After Attia fumes at Octavia for going to an orgy, Agrippa confesses his love for Octavia, who is stunned as he walks out. Octavian, who had promised to heed Cicero's advice as consul, uses intimidation to pass a motion in the Senate declaring Brutus and Cassius enemies of the state. Cicero, mortified by Octavian's tactics and the fact he has, in his own words, been outmaneuvered by a child, sends a letter to Brutus, asking for help. In the east, Brutus is encouraged by the news, and plans to take advantage of the conflict between Mark Antony and Octavian by letting them fight it out, and then returning to Rome just as their forces have dwindled. Cicero tells Octavian that Brutus is coming to Rome with 20 legions, which puts Octavian, who is left with 4 legions, in a dangerous position. Octavian must turn to his mother for help. Attia, accompanied by her son and his army, rides to Gaul, where she greets Mark Antony. She succeeds in convincing Mark Antony to become Octavian's ally, to ensure that they can defeat Brutus' approaching army. Titus Pullus swears to his wife, Irene, that he would save her before Vorenus. As the friends and children sit down for dinner, Vorenus' eldest daughter Vorina gives out stew and thanks her father for his compliments. As the camera pans downward, we see her making the corna, the horn's hand gesture, behind her back, revealing her dishonesty.